All right, Aaron, in 2021, you were named Toronto and National Man of the Year by the Leukemia Society of Canada. So long story short, if we look at your entire career trajectory, how did you do it?
Welcome to Long Story Short, the show that dives straight into what matters. Join hosts Jaspreet Gerwal and Marco Matacchione as they sit down with bold thinkers to uncover the habits, traits and turning points that shape their journey. This is Long Story Short. Fast, focused and full of insight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Long Story Short. My name is Jaspreet.
My name is Marco, and Long Story Short is really just a podcast that we wanted to create to get to know people, how they became successful, and ultimately focus more on the anecdotal kind of personal experiences that they've gone through, the highs, the lows. So no polished bios, very much where you started and how you ended up where you are.
So speaking of successful people, let me introduce you to our guest here today, Mr. Aaron Bains. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Aaron Bains was named one of Canada's top 25 most influential lawyers, especially in the Young Influencer category in 2020. He was honored with the Precedent Setter Award also in 2020. He was also recognized in Best Lawyers and Ones to Watch in Canada for expertise in M&A law and securities, as well as fintech. So Aaron, quite a resume you have there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, especially what was going on around 2020 when you were being honored with all these awards?
Certainly. So in 2020, that was the first year of the pandemic, was actually when I was the president of the South Asian Bar Association of Toronto, which is a chapter of a larger organization. The Toronto chapter is the largest legal diversity organization in Canada. So at that point, not only was I the president of SABA, I also took over as the president of the oldest charity in Toronto called the St. George's Society. So I had two dual roles to kind of juggle and also navigate the pandemic, which was a challenging time for both organizations. And so that combined with my legal work, I think, was recognized by my peers.
Fantastic. You obviously have an extensive list of philanthropic endeavors that you've supported and donated your time to and really causes that you champion. And so were there any experiences throughout your life that kind of made you want to give back and set you on this path of giving back to various communities?
Well, I'm a religious Sikh, and in our religion, giving back is one of the three fundamental tenets of the religion. So my practice of my faith is by giving back to my community. When I lived in Surrey, BC, where I'm from, greatest place in the world, I gave back through assisting my family we would donate to the hospital, run a variety children's charity. I don't know if it's in Toronto, but we would run a telethon at our restaurant for that every year. We used to feed the homeless in the corner of Hastings when I was a kid. And then I moved to Toronto and I tried to find some philanthropic work initially with a charity called Breakfast of Champions. From that, I eventually came on to St. George's Society. And then I was also very involved with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada until recently, and also on their board.
Incredible.
So you are a partner at Aird Berlis. For many of our maybe law students watching, for us, I mean, we're both law students. So going through the recruitment process is definitely something that's top of mind for a lot of students right now as they're going through it. It can be a quite arduous process. So do you want to share a little bit of your experience about how you transitioned out of law school, got into big law, and how you ended up where you are?
The answer is somewhat relatively easy, to be honest. I applied everywhere and I got very few interviews. And the one interview I got in Ontario was at Aird Berlis. And thank God I did well in it. And I still remember that walking into that Holiday Inn interview, little kiosk, because that's how it was done in the past, with Ari Blicker and Derek McCallum from the real estate group. And we had a wonderful interview and they were kind enough to ask me back. I did an interview in Alberta and BC as well, because I was completely unsure where I wanted to live. But something told me I wanted to try out Toronto. And so I ended up landing the role at Aird Berlis, and I've been there ever since.
So your resume seems almost like picture perfect, like exactly what any law student would aspire to do. I'm sure it's what you would aspire to do.
It's not.
But were there any big setbacks that maybe we don't see amongst all the accolades while you were pursuing this?
For sure, definitely. So one of the biggest setbacks in my career was at the very beginning. I wasn't hired back. The week came, it was, I think, May 24th or something like that, 2 weeks before the end of our term, and I wasn't hired back. Looking back, I didn't really understand what was involved with the institution of hire back, knowing that you need to work with certain people or at least gain the attention of the committee. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know any lawyers in downtown Toronto when I moved here. I didn't have anybody to tell me, hey, you should be working with these partners or those. And so I just kind of went out there and worked with people I liked. Now, to my detriment, 2 of those significant people left the firm during my time at the firm. So I didn't have a lot of champions. So I didn't get hired back, which was devastating because I'm sure most of our listeners as well and viewers and whatnot will know lawyers are A-type people. Law students are A-type. Your families are so used to all of you getting straight A's or B pluses, doing well, varsity athletes, speech competitions, whatever it might be. They're not used to hearing I didn't get something done. So my family was also quite shocked, but so was I. However, I was very fortunate. I was told about gentleman Tony Joya. Tony and I were working on a very large transaction at the time, $250 million debt financing arrangement for a fintech company, and his associate left. So it was literally him and I on this deal. And basically, he told management, I need Aaron to stick around to help with this transaction. So they decided to give me a month contract. The month turned into weekly contracts over and over and over again. Of course, that was not really feasible after some time. And in August, I was at a religious conference. Shout out to the WSO, incredible organization that supports young Sikhs. And I was at that conference for leadership. And I came back and I said to Tony, in a few weeks, the articling students are coming back. We've got to do something. I can't it's not, they're going to say you got to use someone else to close out the deal. So at that point, he said, look, he represents a significant amount of the firm revenue. He said, material, I wouldn't say massive, but material amount. And he said, we need to get some other folks to help us. So he went in and talked to another senior partner I'd work with. And I talked to the gentleman who was known as the most senior rainmaker at the firm, who happened to be his assistant, who was a wonderful sweetheart of a person, was thanking me by arranging a lunch with him. This man is very hard to have lunch with, even on the best of days. So when I showed up at Auberge de Pommier, which is a very fancy restaurant, first of all, he was like, who are you and why are we having lunch? And I had to explain to him that Bonnie was doing a favor. I did some work. But at that lunch, I said, listen, Tony and Marty think I should be hired back and we need you to support us. And he was like, sorry, who are you again? And why are we? And I said, no. And I talked to him and I explained. And he said, okay, well, enough people with significant books seem to think we should be hiring. So let's have a talk. And the firm ultimately reconsidered it, and they decided that they had made a mistake. They actually even, and the managing partner apologized, said, look, we just weren't, the system is not designed to capture everybody. I know I have zero hard feelings at all. The system just doesn't work some ways. You will get lost in the system as possible. And so towards the end of August, I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday, they called me in. They said, look, we're going to hire you back. I hadn't signed the contract yet. Superstitious Tony said, don't tell anybody. I did. I walked home. I called my grandfather and I said, listen, don't worry. Your grandson's got a job in Toronto. If he fine, go to sleep. And the next day I signed the paperwork and I didn't even take a single day off since between articling and we closed that transaction September 5th, 2015. And I still work on that client's financing arrangements. And now we're 10 plus almost 12 years later.
Wow.
That's
incredible.
Yeah, that's an incredible story.
Also, you did not give up. You were persistent from May to August. Every day.
And that's what one of the partners said, Marty. He said, you came into the office every single day after you were told you weren't hired. It's wild. But I knew what I wanted, and I knew I wanted to work at that firm. I loved working I knew I was going to learn a lot from Tony. And also, we just got along very well. And I thought, this is the kind of guy that goes to bat for people. And while I'm early in my career, I've now benefited over a decade from his support, 100%. Guidance, and just thoughtfulness. And it's a great, great role model and a great captain of our team.
And I think, too, it even speaks to just how important those connections are to build, whether it's law, business, any field, really, because you never know how those people can help you, how you can help them eventually, maybe down the road. And I think for law students in particular, I mean, the process of going through OCIs and the 2L recruit is so top of mind for everyone, and everyone has a very clear image of what they think success looks like. And so it's great to see that success can look like so many different things, and it's
linear.
Not just there's not one 100%. Clear cut way.
I just told somebody this yesterday. So yesterday was Friday. I do all my mentee calls on Fridays now. And I just told them, one of the students I was mentoring, I don't remember what law school she's from now, but she asked me about OCI. And I said, listen, I want you to also remember one thing. It doesn't matter if you don't get an OCI. Like, it really does not matter. I know it feels like it is the only thing that's important. And I remember that at Queen's too, because everyone was doing it. You're in the process. But of my close friends, 3 of them didn't end up landing OCI jobs. One has got a very successful practice as a constitutional lawyer with Meg. 2 of them are partners at BLG now. And they actually got into all of those roles immediately afterwards and during the articling recruit. So things work themselves out. It's very easy to say that later, but it's easy because it's true.
Yeah.
Right? It's very hard to see it in the moment, but I'm just tell everyone, things always work out. You just have to, don't let this be the be all end all. OCIing for a 2L summer job is 10 to 13 weeks, which is nothing. That's 3 months of what may be a 20 to 50 year career, which is de minimis at best, right?
And I think too, it's just about, to your point, keeping things in perspective. Like, I've never thought about it that way, that it's really only 3 months in terms of a career that hopefully spans decades.
Not even 3 months. If it's like 10 weeks, it's like a little
That's
bit
true.
less. Yeah.
And so it's just important to kind of have that sanity check on yourself. And again, I think it applies really to anybody in any industry.
In any career, people think like you have to do A, B, C, and then you'll get to D, then you'll get E. But the hardest, and I feel like the best character is built when you don't get something you really wanted.
For sure. If you're used to getting everything, you're never going to understand how to get something that's not easily achievable, right?
100%.
And sure, would I wish? I don't wish anything any other way. I think it was very challenging. I definitely struggled during that period, but it's made me who I am today, right? And it also showed a lot of resilience to the firm. I think the firm respected me more, and I mean, I love the firm. They treat me exceptionally well. They're super supportive. Both the prior managing partner and our new managing partner, Jill Fraser, was actually my principal during articling. I wouldn't have it anyway, even though that sounds very odd to say, but you only know what sweetness tastes like if you've had something salty, right? It's impossible to know the difference.
So can we go a little bit more into your relationship with Tony? Because we know the people that you work with really make the experience, and you are the people you surround yourself with. So can we get a little bit more of an inside scoop on that dynamic, you guys work together?
100%. Yeah. I mean, now I'm not as lucky. I don't get to work with him one-on-one as often. I'm both lucky and unlucky. I'm lucky my business, knock on wood, my book of business has been increasing. So I'm doing a lot of my own client work. I still love working with Tony's clients. They're great. But I'll tell you just, I still remember I was very lucky. I studied and tutored under Tony during the pre-COVID era, right? So I would be 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock in his office on the couch. We'd be writing up markups, going back and forth over changes, taking his comments, going back to my computer next door, typing them back up, printing it back up, showing him again, reviewing. But that's the type of, thoughtfulness and time sensitivity would really make us better lawyers. I still remember being on calls. I remember a couple of funny ones and a couple of not funny ones, but I remember being on calls and writing on a piece of paper and holding it up because he used to be back then, not everybody was on the call, right? Just the partner. And I'd be saying, that's not the thing we need to say, or it's in section 5.2, or we had a deal that was just going a bit sideways. And it was a very relatively small transaction, $3.5 million. And as a joke, I was just kind of sitting there late. I go, this is less than the price of a house in Toronto. And he goes off the microphone. He goes, gentlemen, this is less than the price of a house in Toronto. We need to move on from this point. And I just started. So we learned a lot during that. And also during much of that career, Tony drove me home. I at least I still do, about a kilometer away from the office. Every night we would work till really late. And if we were leaving at the same time, he'd give me a ride home so we could debrief on things and just take the edge off of the relationship so it's not all crazy. Now, he demands a lot. He's a great lawyer with excellent client service, excellent attention to detail. So I learned a lot during that time about not being lazy. Print it out again, review it one more time. It doesn't hurt to look at the email one more time before hitting send. These are things that are very important skills that in a fast-paced world today where we're used to getting everything immediately, we sometimes overlook it. But those are some of the most important skills that will really set you apart from everyone else, is just taking a moment to think about what you're doing and to be thoughtful and edit and review just one more time Everyone else isn't doing that. And if you're doing it, well, that's how you're going to be a good lawyer.
It'll set you apart.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron. In 2021, you were named Toronto and National Man of the Year by the Leukemia Society of Canada. So long story short, if we look at your entire career trajectory, how did you do it?
I did it by being surrounded by people that cared about my career as well, and by working exceptionally hard. That's it. Bottom line, I tell everyone this, work hard. If you work hard and you're surrounded by very smart people, by osmosis, you will develop some of their skills. But you will only do it if you are an organism that is actively moving as fast as those around you to be able to do that. So just be diligent. Wake up early. Get in the office. Wear a suit and tie. Be there. Show up in person and be willing to learn hard. Literally, hard work is what will set. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, and I rarely ever have been, and I probably hope I never am, actually. But what I do is I work very hard. I make sure that the people I'm working for are taken care of. I make sure the clients know that we're taking care of them. And that goes a very long way. It'll help you bounce back from mistakes. It'll help you navigate issues, because the harder you work, the more transactions, for me at least, you'll work on, the more issues you'll see, the more solutions you'll see. So if you're working 10 times as hard as a lawyer next to you, they might be the same year of call, but you'll have done 10 times as many deals. You'll know 10 times as many issue spotting tools. You'll know 10 times as many solutions, and the clients will realize that right away. They will see that. And that's very easy to do, because all of us, most of us, have 10 fingers. It's relatively easy to type. You just got to show up at your keyboard these days.
Absolutely.
I like how you mentioned that you have to be mindful of who you surround yourself with. And that you had mentioned that you hope to never be the smartest person in the room. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it now, but somebody once said that if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I need to find a new room to stand in. 100%. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've learned so much, or at least, I know I have. I'm sure you have as well. And I'm sure everybody listening will.
No shortcut to hard work.
Absolutely never. Success doesn't just happen to you. You kind of have to take an active role in it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Long Story Short.
You've been listening to Long Story Short, where big lessons come in small doses. If you felt the spark, follow us, share the episode, and come back for more stories worth your time. We'll catch you next time.